All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world today. I'm so excited to have one of my favorite presenters, Sunshine Chapman, back today for a really interesting discussion of how you can actually still, there are three ways to qualify your client for the ERC credit. And one of the things that we were chatting about before we started was that I think it's a little known secret that you can still file. So anyways, I don't want to give away the surprises here for the webinar, but Sunshine, let me turn it over to you, and thank you so much for your time as always.
Thank you, Allison. I always love being a part of the Lisio events. So my name is Sunshine Chapman. I'm the president of ERC Provider. We are the top affiliate of ERC Specialist, which is the largest ERC filing company in the US, based here in Utah, just south of Salt Lake. And we have about 350 people here that do this around the clock. And so I kind of focus very much on the CPA and financial consultant space. In fact, 86% of our clients come to us because they're referred to us by their financial advisor. So we try to connect with people like you who really know what they're doing and really want to serve their clients, but don't necessarily want to learn all about how to do this yourself. So, but I will be happy today to share some of the pertinent facts about the ERC. We'll start with, what is it? Most people know or have heard about it. But the Employee Retention Credit was part of the CARES Act that was along with the EIDL and the PPP. At the time that it came out, most people did not claim it because if you did PPP, you would get a large chunk of money right away, within a couple of weeks. So people wanted to get that big amount of money rather than this, which comes as just a reduction. It would have been a reduction in their payroll expenses over time during the pandemic. So at the time, most everyone picked PPP. You had to pick one or the other. But then about the middle of 2021, Congress amended the law and made it so that anyone who gets PPP does not disqualify you any longer. And also the main qualification before was only revenue reduction, but they made it, they added in several other ways to qualify. So today we're going to talk about what those ways are and how they might apply to different types of businesses that you work with as a tax professional, so that you can kind of understand and know what's a good candidate for this credit. That it is still available until April 15th, 2025 for 2021. And then the 2020 credits will expire in 2024. But we do still have at least the whole full of this year to help people claim this if they haven't already. So our first poll question is, have any of your clients received the ERC credits? So please let us know how that's looking for you. And we look forward to seeing how this has changed since the last time we did an intro to ERC webinar. The choices are...
Sorry, that was me a little short on the draw there. I apologize, everybody. I was like, oh, poll, that's me. Yeah, so we got people chiming in. We'll give it a couple more seconds. We've got 85% so far have voted. So the choices are: yes, I helped them file; yes, they used an ERC service provider; no, and I don't know. So we got a few more of you who could vote in. We'll give it another few seconds. All right, I'm going to count it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we'll go ahead and share the results. So yes, I helped them file was the winner with 54%. And then no at 34%. So good mix there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We do meet a lot of CPAs and professionals who have helped people file, and a lot of times they tell me they never want to do that again because it's just a lot of, similar to PPP, it's quite a bear and has so many different interacting elements that can be quite a thing to do. So
and one thing we should mention, Sunshine, is that you have an accompanying webinar for this one, which is how to prepare your clients for an audit.
Yes.
So remember, we have some additional resources for you there if you're worried about your clients getting audited. You don't need to. So,
and that one's in
just want to give that a shout out. Yeah, that's in there as well. So we'll share that link. Okay, sorry. Let's carry on.
Yes. So here's second, my screen is freezing. Get to the next one. So there we go. All right. So the ERC, the maximum amount that they can get, clients can get, is $26,000 per W-2 employee. So for example, if they had 50 employees, they would get about 1.3 million. That's based on a wage amount of about 40,000 per employee. So if people are paid way under that, it may be less, but that's what that average is based on. And owners are not, their wages are not eligible. So it isn't that owners can't file for it, but it's that their own personal wages and those of their family members cannot be claimed. So they will be stripped out of the payroll report in order to make sure that we don't falsely claim for those people. And they're pretty broad on the topic of family members. It's brother, sister, cousin, grandchild, all those things. They make it a pretty broad thing. So to eliminate family members. Wages, but they do equal about 70% of the total payroll that companies paid in 2020 and 2021. So it does come out to more than they paid in payroll taxes. The way that it's done is as a payroll tax refund, but it's typically more than was paid. So there are 3 ways to qualify for this. The first is revenue reduction. So this is the one that almost everyone knows about. This is the original way, and it has to be more than 20% reduction for 2021, more than 50% reduction in 2020 as compared to 2019. And in order to back this one up, you would use your P&L statements for, so we meet with a lot of tax preparers who have already filed for their clients just for the quarters that they knew they had revenue reduction for. So early on in 2020, if they were shut down and they, it just completely crushed them on revenue, they could have filed already for those quarters. But now that there's an expansion of this program, they may be eligible to file for additional quarters in addition to the ones that were just revenue reduction. You can't have a mix and match. So it's okay to have some quarters revenue reduction, some supply chain disruption, and some other partial shutdown impacts. So we'll go over those other ways in the future slides. So here's some examples of some businesses that we've talked to that had revenue reduction. We have an Irish pub in New Hampshire. Most of these northern states were really hardcore shut down. So they were just completely shut down. We're not allowed to open for a very long period of time. And they qualified for $72,000 and have received their payment already. Then the other was a hotel in Fargo, North Dakota that we worked with. They were very business focused. So they were working with business travelers. Of course, that really did not happen for quite a while. So they were also able to claim it based on revenue reduction. So that's just a straight up, did you make less money in these quarters than you did in the similar quarters of 2019? So that one is pretty straightforward, and we get into the meat of it with the ones that are a little more difficult. So the second one is supply chain disruption. So the supply chain disruptions need to be based on resulting on a government order to the supplier, and that actually restricted their ability to do business. An example would be, so we've done probably $200 million in credits personally for people in a certain transportation. They pick up packages and deliver them to companies, and mostly to businesses, some to residential. They could not get things like scanners to scan the packages. They couldn't get tires, trucks themselves, truck parts. So all their trucks that they use for delivery were all, just stranded and sitting there. They couldn't get uniforms. They couldn't get the computers to scan the right kind of computers they needed. So when it comes to a level of like that of 10% or more, a more than nominal effect, that's when it qualifies. So we have another poll here, Allison. And this one is, were you aware of the supply chain disruption qualification factor? Let's see what people are saying on this one. I know when we did this before, it was news to a lot of people, but may have gotten out a little bit more since there's so much in the news about this lately.
Yeah, I think the awareness is higher, but it's interesting. Don't feel bad if your answer is no, because you're not the only one. I think the first time we did this webinar, there was the bulk of people hadn't heard of it.
And it is part
So,
of what's under the regs, it's part of partial shutdown, but we draw it out separately because it has such more complicated rules than some of the other partial shutdowns. So we treat it as a separate factor to be able to explain it more deeply.
yeah.
But it is part of
So
the partial
we are
shutdown.
literally we got a last minute. You've got a few more people to vote. We'll see if they tip it over.
Yeah.
Folks, if you could vote, it would really help us. We're at 90% now. So we just need the last 10% to vote. because then we'll see because it's a tie. It's like really close.
That's exciting. It shows we need to do more education on this aspect.
I know, I know, I know. Okay, well, we'll end the poll. So we ended up with 53% saying yes and 47% saying no. So
Great, great.
so pretty close,
Good.
pretty
So I'll make sure
close.
we dig into this and make sure everyone is fully aware of all
Yeah,
the different things that go into this
yeah,
factor. So
yeah.
let me get back into here. So the supply chain disruption has to result from government orders to the supplier. A lot of people get hung up on this one because how do you know what your supplier, what government orders your supplier might have received? And what we recommend when we talk about the audit defense and being prepared, creating a substantiation packet, is for our clients who have supply chain disruption, we recommend making a table which would have the item you couldn't get, such as tires, the company you used to get it for, like Michelin, their location, usually Detroit, Michigan, for a lot of the things related to automobiles. And then you would go into, we actually have this a link that has all the shutdown orders state by state for 2021 and 2020. So you can actually see what were all the shutdown orders affecting that state. And then you can put that shutdown order information in the table that you keep so that you have a record of, basically a chain of custody of going from, I couldn't get this, this is where it came from, this is why they couldn't give it to me. So that's what we recommend people keep on file in order to substantiate that.
Yeah,
You also
Lorraine just asked that exact question, how you
okay.
prove it. So Lorraine, let us know if that's not a good enough answer for you, but it sounds like there's a backup, where you can literally link to the government order and then show where you got the item, and then you keep a table. That sounds pretty simple.
Yeah, that's just what, and it's not required in order to apply. It's just what we recommend that you keep on file in order to have your, just like you'd have receipts, have your substantiation. Another way to substantiate is to keep to show that you weren't able to get things. It could either be just writing down, I made a phone call. A lot of people don't, just order by phone call. So just say, I called, Bob's Tires on April 5th, 2020, and he said he was out of the tires I needed for my truck, that kind of thing. So if you don't have a paper trail for the fact that you weren't able to get it, a lot of times people do have the email order, like an order receipt, or and then a delayed shipment notification, or a notification of when the shipment came versus when it was ordered. So anything that you would have that would show things that weren't able to be delivered would be exactly what you want here. There has to be no reasonable replacement. So that means like you couldn't just go to, Amco instead of to, Bob's Tires and get the same exact thing at the same exact price. It needs to be that either it was more costly or it wasn't the right item, or that it was going to take way longer. And so that's what they mean by reasonable replacement. And more than nominal impact means it took the IRS a while to explain this, but they finally did. And it's more than 10% impact on your business. So same as when we get into the other partial shutdowns, that can be based on, it doesn't have to be based on revenue. So people always get tied back up into revenue. It could be that, for example, you sold 500 buffets, right? If you're a restaurant that has buffet dinners, you sold 500 buffet dinners in 2019. In 2020 and 2021, buffet dinners were shut down due to your local government order. Therefore, you had zero. So that would be, items sold. It could just be a record of items sold. And for the example of supply chain, if you couldn't get, trucks, you'd say, well, I used to have this in 2019, I ordered this many trucks. In 2020, I ordered this many. So it can be items ordered. It can be items sold. It can be hours, man hours. So how many, if your people would used to take some kind of hamburger meat and they would turn it into patties, that you would show that you did not have those man hours where they were processing that meat that year. So we've worked with a lot of like big steel mills, big food processors. There's all kinds of businesses. So every single one we talk to has a different story. And so what my company does is interview them, help them determine what happened to them that matches up with these regulations. So more than
Yeah,
nominal is more than 10%.
yeah. One of the interesting things that happened in my town, Sunshine, was that the restaurants were allowed to do takeout, but
Right,
they weren't allowed to have seat in, which meant they couldn't sell alcohol.
exactly. And again,
And so they
in
were selling
Florida, they let them do
food,
it
but
in
they
bags.
couldn't.
Yeah.
they couldn't sell, they weren't allowed to sell like a bottle of wine for someone to take home or a cocktail or anything. So that would that be an area
Huge, yeah,
of,
that would fall actually under reduction in services offered.
oh,
They
reduction, okay,
weren't
different
weren't
offer,
able to,
yeah.
that's coming up later, but for example, if they just couldn't get alcohol and they were still allowed to sell it, but they couldn't get it, and they would
Then
show,
that would
okay,
be, yeah,
2019, we sold 500 bottles of Michelob, and 2020, we sold zero Michelob because we couldn't get it,
because you
and
couldn't get
people,
it. Yeah.
yeah,
How
yeah,
about Bruce has a question, and you may want to defer this for later. I'm not sure where it fits in, but I wanted you to be aware of it. Are they the same qualifications for not-for-profits? So
yes.
I don't know if we can take that now or you want to take that later.
Yep, nonprofits are the same. Yeah, it doesn't affect that. They're the same, the rules are the same. So the one thing about nonprofits that makes it kind of good is that typically they don't have an owner. There's no owner of nonprofits, so there aren't any majority owners' wages to be excluded, which is a
Mhm.
good thing. But yes, nonprofits do qualify for this, and we've done many, many schools and churches, like like charter schools that are privately run, private schools. A lot of churches, that's a big focus for our group because they were so decimated by the, no one was able to go physically and pass the plate, which no matter, even if you do have online giving, it doesn't happen the same that way. So the more than nominal is basically you just look at all the things you do in your business and all the things you did in 2019 that involved this product or item, and then that you couldn't do them in those 2 years. And that's a more than 10% of your business aggregate. So it could be, it doesn't have to be that one item resulted in 10%. It'd have to be all the different impacts created a more than nominal impact on your business. So yeah, supply chain is a trickier one, and there hasn't been a lot of like case law on any of this stuff, or a lot of really clear guidelines on how to substantiate. So we just tried to come up with, based on things that we see the IRS asking for in IDRs, coming up with some good guidelines of the kind of things that you would want to keep on hand, just like you would receipts for anything else. So these are some case studies. I did kind of talk earlier about this root owner of FedEx. We've done a few hundred of those all over the country. They had a lot of supply chain disruptions. So they're required by FedEx to have things like these special scanners, special rear view cameras, a device that keeps your truck from being driven off if you leave it, like a theft protection device. They had very specific things that they were required to have and that they were not able to get because of supply chain disruptions. And so we have this huge kind of database it's become of all the different things that they have had problems with, that the clients substantiate this themselves and keep records on what they couldn't get. And so this one with 40 employees was able to get $724,000, and they have gotten their checks. So that was a nice big one. Any company that's that about 40 usually equals between about 800 and $1 million in credits. So then we had a pharmacy owner with 4 employees. She received 94,000. She couldn't get, typical with retail, with bags, receipt tape, so the specific types of papers they need to do their pharmacy records. She couldn't get a lot of drugs too, a lot of medications that were that they either stopped making or weren't able to continue producing based on government orders. So this pharmacy owner was able to qualify based on supply chain. So that's supply chain. Of course, I'm always happy to answer any questions on substantiating and understanding that. The next one is partial or full suspension. So this one has a whole bunch of different subcategories. So I'm going to dig really deeply into those so you can kind of get ideas for what types of things might apply to your client. So the full suspension is easy. That is an actual shutdown. Remember March 17th, 2020, I was at one of my hotel clients and they were told that right now, right in the middle of our meeting, they were like, oh no, forget all the things we were going to be doing. Now we are shutting down. The bar had to shut down, the hotel. First it was the bar because they were like, oh, we don't want alcohol on the beach. And then it was shut down the hotel. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. We're going to just do this. And of course, it ended up lasting a lot longer than that, and created them a complete devastation, zero revenue whatsoever, because they couldn't receive any guests. So that would be the full suspension. So everyone knows what that is. That, however, would probably only cover most businesses for some of the quarters. So you can claim full suspension for Q2 of 2020, which is when most everyone was completely shut down for a time. And then after that, you'll want to look into other ways to qualify that. So the second one is a partial shutdown, partial suspension, which has to have more than nominal impact. These 4 things under that are some of the subcategories that the IRS has explained and written out what they are and how they work. So reduction in capacity is another fairly simple one to understand. Usually there was a fire code limit on how many people you could have in your office, your warehouse, your processing plant, obviously in retail stores, how many people could be there. It was, could have been 50, 100, and then due to government orders, they reduced the capacity to keep us apart from each other to maybe 6 people in a building at one time, or 10. So as you've always seen when you go to the mall, there would be signs on there's still lines outside of a lot of stores today where they're still kind of keeping that way, so that only a certain number of people can be in there at one time. But during the time that there were government orders reducing the crowd sizes, that is when this would qualify. So it would just be that they couldn't have as many people in their facility, which changed things for a lot of businesses. Another one that goes along with that, I don't have here, but it's reduction in hours. So some places were under curfews that mandated they close early. That usually only qualified people during that Q2 of 2020. Next is reduction in services offered. This is really, really broad. This one applies to many of our clients. So for example, that trucking company, they couldn't, the offices and government buildings they used to deliver to were closed down, so they could not provide those services. Restaurants couldn't do in-house dining, they only could do takeout. There's the reduction in services. We just spoke yesterday with an OBGYN. She could still deliver babies. They had to do that, right? But they were not allowing her to do hysterectomies in the hospital because they were restricting surgeries to only, they were keeping out elective surgeries in order to keep the hospital capacity open due to government orders. So that's another example of something you may not have thought, right? If it may be a essential business that was still open, but they weren't able to do certain things. We work with a lot of hospices and they were not able to do their fundraising. So that was one way that they would do fundraising, was to have big events and have people come in. They couldn't do that. They weren't allowed to send chaplains and volunteers to visit patients because of government orders. They weren't able to maybe have a thrift shop open where they used to make money for their nonprofit. So that is there's a lot of different things. So when we talk to our clients, first thing we just ask them is, what happened to you? So tell us your story. What was it that happened to your business and how did it change for you? Then from that, we draw out what things apply under these orders. So reduction in services offered is something that applies to a lot of people. So the question we ask for that one is, what did you do before that you couldn't do during the pandemic? The next one is inability to access equipment. So this could be things like if they used a computer center, or they used a shared kitchen, or they went to some place to process things, and that place was closed down, then they couldn't do that. And for one of our clients, he receives newspapers from all of the huge newspaper companies and has a gigantic plant where they have these sorting tools, sorting machines, where they sort the newspapers and then send them to be delivered. Well, they weren't allowed into that building because it would have resulted in too much people together. So he had an inability to access equipment. He had to actually move outside for the entire pandemic time and do all of this on tables in the parking lot. So obviously you're getting wet, things are different, it's hot, it's not the way they weren't using the machines, and things took longer. So that was a good example of equipment access problems. Another really broad one is travel restrictions. So this one talks about canceled meetings that were trade shows. So anyone who used to, I actually met Allison at a trade show, right? So back before the pandemic began, the way we met new customers and found business and learned and got educated and everything else was going to these trade shows. Due to government orders, those trade shows were canceled. We couldn't have that large of a gathering. Therefore, it reduced our ability to get customers in that way. That's a really common one. It could also be that you used to go do, like for a tech company, you used to go do in-person demos and you weren't able to travel to their offices because they were closed. It could be that you used to go to local networking meetings to meet new customers, if you're in insurance or real estate, or you used to have, travel to other places to meet potential clients and have them come work with you. Anything that you used to go somewhere to do that you couldn't do anymore applies under the travel restrictions. Allison, do we have another question coming up?
Yeah, Robert just popped one in. In 2020, did in 2020, owners did qualify, is the way he wrote it. I'm thinking he means, did owners qualify in 2020 for these? Maybe you understand the question better than
Yeah.
I do.
No, the owner's wages have never been permitted under this. It's always been
Okay.
owners and relatives were not couldn't qualify. So when they changed it, it's always been like that. So.
Okay.
All right. So here's some case studies for partial shutdown. So this eye surgeon was an eye doctor. She's one of those that actually ended up paying all of her employees using her credit card just to survive because there was no income coming in, because the way she made most of her money was doing elective surgeries like cataract surgery and other things that were completely forbidden due to government orders that were trying to keep the hospitals open. So that's something that really works for a lot of medical. Another thing that works, we've done a lot of dental offices, and they had to change a whole lot because the tools that they would use in the past would aerosolize everything into the air. So they would use these cleaning implements that created aerosol, which is obviously dangerous. So they were ordered under these government orders to stop using those things and to have fewer people at any time. So they couldn't see as many patients. They had to do more cleaning, and that does qualify when it's ordered. So a lot of places were ordered to have like an hour between patients in order to do a deep clean of the facility in between. So, and that if there's an order tied to it, that would qualify. They also they had to change to manual processes, which made every appointment take longer. So any type of thing like that, where you were ordered to stop doing something, you had to adjust your business, and it affected your ability to serve customers, that would qualify. We have a senior living facility here, a hospice and an assisted living. That one had 200 employees, and they qualified for 4.6 million and have received their checks. One note, and I'm not sure how much people know about the ERC at this point, but having done this for a year and a half now, since they kind of opened up the rules, for several months, the IRS was holding checks that were over 200,000. So those would be checks for people's files about 800,000 total or more. And they were just piling up on a desk for further review. They were taking a lot longer. So most every check we were getting was taking between 2 and 4 months. At first it was much more. Now it's about 2 to 4 months, but the larger ones were being held. At the end of December, they changed their policy and started releasing them en masse. So we have been getting a lot of people who had these larger credits getting paid in just the last month. So if you do have clients who had fairly large credits filed, whether you did it themselves or somewhere else, you can inform them that the light at the end of the tunnel is there. So we actually have reason to believe that the IRS is going to start processing those in a more normal way, just like they are the other items, other ERC claims. So this is one of the big ones. One other note is on the employer side, since this one had 200, they were too big to claim for 2020, because 2020 you have to have under 100 employees. However, the credit for 2020 is pretty small. It's only 5,000 per employee at the maximum. 2021 is 7,000 per employee per quarter. So it's $21,000 per employee maximum in 2021. So even though they only were able to get 2021, they still got a really large amount. And part-time is unlimited. So you can have only up to 500 full-time, but you can have unlimited part-time employees. So that's something good to know and the calculation for how to do that is based on average hours worked in 2019. So that's one of those things that's always worth asking us, because even if they seem like they're close, if we do help you do the calculation and figure it out, it could be an incredibly large amount of money for them if they have a larger number of employees. Allison, do we have
Yeah,
some more questions?
we do. They're piling up. So tell me which ones you want to answer now, and which ones you'd want to go. They feel like they might be all pretty relevant right now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't know this person's name. They came in as anonymous. If your company uses an employee leasing company, and they've got in brackets BBSI, is the company eligible for ERC? So
They
that's an
can
interesting
be.
one, because a
Yeah.
lot of people use that, don't they?
Yes,
So that they can get the benefits and not have to do the HR themselves.
exactly. And our company does not work with those because they have to file for all their employees at once. So it becomes it is something that is permitted, but it's not something that we do ourselves. And there are it's basically you'd have to make an agreement with the PEO themselves, the leasing company, to get them to handle this, because it's not something that they have everyone has different policies, and they have to just file one time altogether. And it's
Because it's
eligible, but
only
not
one
for review.
employer,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
yeah,
tricky. So that's a tricky one. So
yeah,
anonymous, great question.
yeah.
Um, okay, so that one's done.
Okay.
Um,
Relatives,
Yvette, yes, Yvette is asking, can you please go over the relatives restriction? Are nephews excluded? I think you
yes,
said they were excluded, right?
yes.
So who is excluded for
It's
those who might
I
have
have a
joined
very
late?
long message about this. It's a I can
A long
actually,
list?
yeah, it's a long list. I'm going to see if I can pull it up quickly. Yeah, it's good. I'm just Googling it. Basically, I don't have it memorized because it's a very long list. So I would just Google that, but I can also put it in a follow-up email.
Yeah, and Yvette, we
Husband,
can we
wife,
can follow up
in-laws,
with you. Yeah,
grandparents, grandchildren, niece, nephew. It's really broad. So I believe that nephews are excluded, but I don't have it memorized. So I will,
yeah, sounds like they are.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
do you cover, and Charles is asking, do you cover situations where clients got PPP loans that got discharged?
Mhm.
Can
Yeah.
you get ERC in that case?
And so if you mean discharge as far as forgiven, yes, most of the PPP loans have been forgiven. And
Mhm.
in that case, yes, they can get it, whether or not they have been forgiven, it's fine. But yes, what they do for the PPP is we get a detailed payroll report that has a list of every check paid and the amount and the person paid. And then when we know from you the PPP amount and the period that was used for forgiveness, we go in and cancel out those wages. So it's a complex formula that drops out those wages. So yes, PPP, they're still eligible with PPP. It's not a problem.
Great. And then we've got anonymous again. So
Yeah.
if their income didn't decrease in 2021, then they could still qualify even if their income increased?
Yes. And most of our customers, probably 80%, had an income increase. They actually, just like, back when this started, I own a marketing agency and worked with several different businesses. Everyone needed online marketing instead of going to trade shows. So my business boomed, right? So a lot of people who were, working hard and doing a great job figuring out how to pivot did make more money, and they can qualify. Yes. So the revenue reduction is only the first of the three ways to qualify.
Mhm,
The other two are not related to revenue.
mhm.
So that's the question. The question I get most often is people call me up and say, I just told my CPA that I'm doing this, and he told me I don't qualify because my revenue didn't decrease. And that's just because people have the understanding based on the original form of the
Just the
law.
revenue. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's why
Okay,
we're doing it.
we've made our way through. Great questions, guys.
Yeah. So talking a little bit more about, so that's just some of the case studies about who qualifies. So under 100 full-time employees. Now these two numbers are based on 2019 employee count. So it's a little confusing, right? Because you have to have under 100 full-time employees in 2019 to qualify for 2020, and under 500 in 2019 to qualify for 2021. They have to be W-2. Anything with 1099 is not eligible. And essential businesses can be eligible if they experience these partial shutdown impacts that we discussed above. So the company that we work with, that they're a processing partner, and I'm their #1 affiliate, our company. So we have a group of, in my affiliateship, ERC provider, we have 26 dedicated facilitators. And what we do is we find people, and most of them are referred to us from CPAs. We meet CPAs at various events where we go, and we're like sponsors of NATP and several other events where we connect with CPAs, explain this, enroll them in the opportunity and help them to learn what types of customers might want to come to us. Then they send them to us. We interview them, help them, because you can see this is a qualitative issue. This is not a math issue. This isn't just doing the form. You need to write the substantiation in a way that the IRS will understand. So, and will accept, right? Because, for example, you don't qualify just because people got sick with COVID. You don't qualify because people didn't want to come to work or didn't want to come to your shop because of COVID. There's a lot of things that people think might qualify them, but they don't. So we talk to them to help them understand and write the proper substantiation. And then our customers, once they've finished that part of it, the qualitative part, ERC specialist does the processing. So they ask them for their 941s, a payroll journal for the entire period, and they ask them for their PPP information, the loan amount, the forgiveness date, and the date received. Once they have those 3 items, they process it. It takes about a week to 2 weeks. Then they send back to the customer their items to their filing to sign on their behalf, so they can file for them. So we are the people who've created this program and who run it at ERC Specialists. They're enrolled agents that work with the IRS, and they are also certified fraud examiners who actually like represented the IRS in cases themselves. So they kind of understand how things need to be written appropriately. So these are some other kind of things to substantiate why ERC Specialist is an excellent choice for you. We do have on our board of directors, advisory board, we have the Attorney General of the state of Utah and also a former US Attorney General. We go bend over backwards to find out exactly what the IRS wants and to make sure that we're doing our very best to deliver the filings in the way that they want to see them. So I feel very confident in our integrity and our process. These are some of the people behind the scenes that created this program that help. These are their credentials, so you can see like who's behind the way that we do this here at ERC Provider and ERC Specialists. And the process is you talk to us. So you would basically, we'll explain later about our referral program. You'd sign up as a referral partner with us and then send your clients to us by just either writing an email and saying an email of introduction or just sending us their contact information. Then one of my facilitators on my team will call them and help them through this questionnaire online that helps them to complete their substantiation paragraphs, because that's kind of the hardest part of it. And after that interview, they will send in their documents, the 941s, payroll journal, and PPP information. Then it's evaluated by ERC specialists. They analyze and come up with their amount. Then the client will receive their filing ready to go. At that point, they choose whether they want to pay 10% of their credit up front and then just receive all the checks directly, or if they want to pay 15%, and then when the checks arrive, they will be invoiced at that time. So they get to choose either way. After they choose that, they'll get a sign now, where they'll sign for ERC specialists to file on their behalf. And then usually in about 2 to 4 months, we receive a series of 6, if they filed for 6 quarters, overpayment notices. A CP 210 is one of the things we get. It says you've overpaid on your taxes and we are now going to issue your check. Usually we'll get 6 of those. Within a couple of weeks after that, we'll get 6 checks for each quarter of the pandemic period. So that's kind of how the process works. And in my particular group, we've done over 2,000 of these deals in the last year and a half. ERC specialists have done a total of $6 billion in this credit successfully filed for over 35,000 companies. And I also serve as the marketing director of ERC specialists. So I write all their blogs. I basically dig really deeply into that IRS 21-20 2021 thing to find out exactly what all the different nuances of this are, so we can write explanations of it for our customers. We do have a revenue share opportunity that for CPAs and tax professionals who want to work with us, we will pay you as a referral partner 10% of the revenue we receive. So it comes out, here's some examples of what it comes out to at the different levels. So if it's $1 million credit, which would be about 40 employees, you would receive $4,500 if they paid later. So the numbers on the right are based on the pay later fee, which is most commonly what people choose. They don't want to pay the money up front. So we would welcome anyone who would like to be a part of this program. You can email us afterwards. My email is info@ercprovider.com, and I think Allison will provide some follow-up emails as well, so that we can send you all the details on this and hopefully start serving your clients and helping them claim this with a business that you can trust. So we would be very happy to assist you with that. And it looks like we may have some more Q&As here. Allison,
Yeah.
yes.
So, anonymous again, sorry, I don't know your name. What and how to report ordained ministers' wages? And you probably know this, that they don't have any Social Security or Medicare taken out of it, or because they don't qualify for that type of They get paid under a special
Yes,
deal.
yes. So we usually, when we do a church, we'll include the full report, and then the IRS will parse out which of those, the ERC specialists and the IRS will determine which part of those can qualify, because there is some portion of it that does qualify. So usually it's along with the other people in the business. If it was just one minister in the business, it would be unlikely to be worth doing, because a lot of it will get reduced. But if you have other things like staff, office staff, and other members of the church, then yes, that would qualify. And then it looks like Charles is asking about a video log. So I'm not entirely sure what that means.
Yeah, I was going to ask for clarification on that, Charles. We're not sure. Do you mean, are there videos that Sunshine has, or or is there? Yeah, so go ahead and give us a bit more information.
We
But
do have some
Emilio,
explanation videos that talk more
yeah,
about this for them. So yes,
Emilio has a great question. How long do we have to claim ERC? What's the statute of limitations on ERC? Is it 3 years?
yes, it is 3 years from the date that it was originally due. So that date is, they were due at the end of the quarter, but the official date that the 941s were due is the April 15th of the year following. So for 2020, they were officially due April 15th, 2021. Therefore, they had 3 years from that date till April 15th, 2024 to claim for 2020. 2021 was due in 2022, so therefore they have till 2025. So it's 3 years from the date it would be originally due. So yes, April 15th, 2021. And Charles is asking about videos. So I do believe, and we have a lot of different videos that explain this that we could certainly provide. We can help you. One thing we do with a lot of our partners is create an email that has links in it to videos and
Yeah,
to other information, so they can share it with their clients to help them understand it, and then their clients can reply back and say, yes,
yeah.
I do want to do this. Another thing we can do is create a landing page. So if you want to send an email to a bunch of your clients and say, sign up, then you could have this landing page that they would just put in their information. It would go to a Google sheet that we would use to track that they were coming from you. We have this very advanced CRM where we could pull everything from there, and then we send you monthly reports on the status of each of your clients.
Yeah. And Robert was asking about your email. That's on the screen right there,
Mhm.
sunshine@ercprovider.com. And we
Mhm.
have a poll, folks, where we're going to ask you whether you'd like to receive more information from ERC Provider. And just putting yes in there means that Sunshine will get in touch and give you some more information. And Charles, it sounds like you should say yes to, because you got a lot of questions here that are, I think they're going to basically give. So I don't think we haven't answered. Is it time for that poll yet?
Yes, I don't know if I have a slide for it, so if you could,
Let's
I
go
think
ahead
you
and
have it.
launch it now. Let's
Yeah.
go ahead and launch it now so that we can, yeah. It's just simple. Would you like more information from ERC Provider? It's just yes or no. Um, and Thomas, yes, the presentation we're going to be attaching to the Grove, which is our educational community, if you're not aware of that. And the Grove, I will share. What I'm going to do, Thomas, is I'm going to, as soon as we finish the poll, I'll answer to everybody how you can get into the Grove. So we've got just a few more people to vote in. Go ahead, folks. Yes or no, simple answer. And then we can
I
move
see a
on.
few more. Yeah, I see a few more Q&As. Okay, there we've gotten them all. So yeah.
I'm gonna count it down in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. So Thomas, for the copy of the presentation, what I'm going to do is, oops, you know what? I answered that wrong. It's just thegrove.thinkific.com. And we'll send the information in the follow-up in the thank you email so that you know how to join. But Sunshine is a member of the Grove and she can answer questions on there as well.
Mm.
So yeah, great, great. But was there anything else, Sunshine, that you wanted to cover, or are we pretty much at the end?
I think that's about it. So yeah, I encourage you to look at my other presentation in the Grove as well, which is how to make sure your ERC filings are audit ready, because we want to
Yep.
make sure that people know from the very beginning how to keep their ducks in a
What
row.
to track. Yeah, if you track it, it's not a scary thing, is it?
Yeah.
Because, your team is going to help them really understand what section they're applying under,
Mhm.
how to differentiate, how to document it, what sorts of proof and things that you need. So pretty simple process. Well, Sunshine, thank you. We about 45 minutes is what we promised for this webinar today. We nailed it on time with all the questions from this very engaged audience. Really appreciate all of you. I know this is a busy time of year. And the other thing I wanted to clarify, I know Sunshine said most of her referrals come from CPAs, but EAs and bookkeepers as well.
Yeah. Any
Welcome.
kind of financial
Any
consultant. Yeah,
type of accounting
absolutely.
professional.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, folks. So we're going to go ahead and end this. And as I mentioned, you will receive an email, and the email will tell you how to access the PowerPoint. It'll be in a PDF format, so you can review it along with Sunshine's information. And those of you that did say yes, we will be passing your contact information along to Sunshine, and her team will get in touch probably next week or so. So great. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sunshine. Appreciate you. And Sunshine, I'll see you. I think it's next week on our
Yes, certainly.
how to prepare for the audit one.
That's
Okay,
right.
good.
Looking forward to
Thank you, everybody. Bye now.
it.